Sounds like a B movie. Millions of males vanish. Fact is, there aren't as many nowadays. Not human males, not frogs, not fish.
Chemicals are moving us into a period of the most rapid evolution that this species has ever experienced.
From toys to shampoo, we're awash in strange new compounds, and we're only just learning that males are being hit hardest.
The scientists within Health Canada are telling the government, listen, you really have to move on this.
I'm Anne-Marie MacDonald. This Doc Zone asks, where have all the boys gone? There are many warning signs. A growing body of evidence shows that something is wrong with the sexual health of human males. Sperm counts worldwide have been cut in half in the last 50 years. Sperm abnormalities and rates of male infertility have radically increased. Rates of testicular cancer have doubled in the last 20 years. The question is, why? Scientists now believe that certain man-made chemicals are to blame. They interfere with the male hormonal system and are playing havoc with the basic building blocks of male sexual development. The problem is, these chemicals are everywhere. There was a time, not too long ago, when the Earth was a simpler place. 60 years ago, synthetic chemicals were a futuristic novelty. Since that time, the chemical industry has developed more than 90,000 man-made compounds, and the vast majority of them have never been tested for their effects on human beings.
During the last 50 years, we've learned how to create new chemicals and we've turned them loose. In the next 50, we may figure out what we've done.
It's like in a certain way we're on the Titanic and we see the iceberg, but we just can't turn the ship.
These chemicals are found in virtually every consumer product. Chemicals like bisphenol A make plastics hard and unbreakable. Other chemicals called phthalates make plastics soft and pliable. Chemicals make cosmetics smell fresh and fragrant. They make our fabrics stain-resistant and our computers flame-resistant. But have we unleashed a monster? Some common chemicals are causing profound and permanent damage to growing bodies. And for reasons we are just beginning to understand, some synthetic chemicals are far more damaging to boys.
I feel that every child should be able to live up to their innate potential, whatever.
The testes are part of the male endocrine system, the network of glands that regulate many of the body's functions. They stimulate growth, regulate our metabolism, and control reproduction. These glands release hormones that are the body's chemical messengers. The sex hormone testosterone is a chemical messenger that plays a central role in male sexual development. Some synthetic chemicals can disrupt or block the functioning of testosterone in the body, permanently damaging the sexual development of male children. This disruption of the human body's own system may be the greatest unintended consequence of the 20th century's chemical revolution. The chemical industry is only 100 years old, but it has transformed the world. The Second World War accelerated demand for countless new products: prescription drugs, food additives, synthetic rubber, nylon, and pesticides. By the early 1950s, the chemical industry was churning out hundreds and then thousands of new compounds. One product revolutionized the way we live: plastic. Virtually all of these new chemical compounds were derived from one source: petroleum. Synthetic chemicals made modern life possible. At first, few suspected that synthetic chemicals might be dangerous. Pesticides like DDT were seen as innocuous, even beneficial. By the 1960s, though, our natural habitat was telling a different story, as certain chemicals like PCBs and dioxin devastated the environment.
From the early 40s on, those people who were of childbearing age were exposed to these chemicals in excessive amounts. And consequently, by 1950, the first generation of children exposed to these chemicals in the womb were born.
Those most threatened by toxic chemicals are not adults. They are children and babies. But the most vulnerable of all have not even been born.
There's no question that the most serious effects are to the unborn child, because the effects are permanent and because the fetus has very few defenses against these chemicals.
This is a time when all the cells are starting to divide from each other, developing into organs. And this can start as early as 6 weeks, even earlier, after conception.
Until recently, doctors believed that the fetus was protected from contamination by the placental barrier. But the womb provides no such protection.
Everything that the mother is exposed to could potentially expose the fetus. The difference is that the fetus is exquisitely sensitive, many, many more times more sensitive than the mother, and so it's much more dangerous.
For several weeks after conception, the embryo is neither male nor female. Sex hormones orchestrate the process that determines whether the fetus will be a boy or a girl. In the 7th week of pregnancy, the male reproductive tract begins developing. Chemical exposures are likely behind a 200% increase in male genital birth defects.
This is where a boy starts becoming a boy. If he can't get past that stage with all the processes that have to take place, that are taking place under very, very low concentrations of hormones, that boy isn't going to make it to full manhood in terms of what you want in a man.
After birth, the infant is further exposed to chemicals in the mother's breast milk.
There's no question that when you show that mother's milk has contaminants, and then you actually look at babies, and you can actually take a blood sample or a urine sample and show that those contaminants are not only in that child, but they stay in that child, it is revolutionary.
But for decades, the chemical industry has chosen not to test its products on bodies that are still growing.
They want to use what happens in an adult animal to predict what could happen during development in this little 1, 2 cell, 20 cell, then beautifully orchestrated development of the baby. You're building a baby in the womb, piece by piece, and if something gets in there and interferes with this building block here, the plumbing there, the wiring there, the brain, that sort of thing, that child is damaged forever. It's irreparable damage. You can't go back and rebuild that.
The chemical threat to boys is not only interfering with normal development, it may be a threat to the survival of the species. But the danger is not only found in heavily contaminated communities like Sarnia. It also exists in our homes, in chemicals we encounter every day. Children live in a state of constant exposure to over 1,000 synthetic chemicals. They are found in computers, clothing, furniture, and bedding. They are in the water they drink and the air they breathe.
It used to be contamination was something that happened to someone else. If you were working in a factory, in a refinery, well, that was your tough luck that you got exposed.
Pollution isn't just something that's coming out of a smokestack. It's in us. It's actually in our bodies. It's in all of us. It's become part of the background chemistry in our bodies. And it's accumulating, and it's accumulating quickly.
This flood of synthetic compounds has made day-to-day life a toxic minefield for male children. Virtually all of the chemicals linked to male reproductive problems are made from petroleum.
In order to make every one of the products that we're dealing with today, you have to start from a fossil fuel. Basically, that's what it boils down to. It's the cracking of it. It's taking that crude oil, that rough natural gas that's coming out of the ground, and cleaning them up and getting those byproducts that are making it possible to make these products.
A common class of petrochemicals called phthalates is used in everything from cosmetics and medical IV tubing to food packaging and children's toys. The research of Dr. Shauna Swan began with a disturbing realization.
I turned to studying phthalates when I read that the Centers for Disease Control had found phthalates in almost everybody in the United States, and that they seem to be more prevalent in women of reproductive age, coupled with new data showing that phthalates cause significant changes in the male offspring.
Phthalates in the mother's body and breast milk have been linked to the disruption of normal sexual development in male babies.
The outcomes that we've looked at, which are called the phthalate syndrome now, which are the decreased masculinization, possibly smaller genitals, less complete testicular descent.
Many soft toys contain phthalates, despite the fact that they can leach out of the plastic and end up in the bodies of infants.
Well, the phthalates make toys cuddly and soft. They basically are the basis of the safe toy industry in our country because the children don't get hurt on nice, cuddly, soft things.
Phthalates are also widely used in personal care products. 3/4 of all name-brand cosmetics, including deodorant, hair gel, shampoo, and body wash, contain them.
They're in the cosmetics because they cling to the skin and they hold perfumes. They're really great for delivery systems to perfume because they penetrate the skin, they'll move in, and they'll take the perfume with them, which then actually increase the lifetime of the perfume. And it's in hair conditioners. It's that stuff that makes the hair so beautiful and glossy, and you can manage it.
It looks clean. It smells clean. It feels clean. We've been marketed that this product is clean. So it's very difficult to think of it as dirty, as polluted, as toxic. So there's a huge perception barrier to get over.
You know, it's a skin cream, and you put it on your hands. You say, well, I don't eat it. But, you know, you put that skin cream on your hands, and you wait for a few minutes. Is it still there? No, it's gone. Where do you think it went? It didn't go in the air, okay? It went into your body.
Of all the chemicals raising concern, none is more notorious than bisphenol A. 7 billion pounds of this chemical are produced yearly. It is the raw material for one of the most widely used plastics in consumer society, polycarbonate. Polycarbonate is a hard, rigid plastic used in a vast array of products, from DVDs to baby bottles. It is also at the center of a public health firestorm. Up until recently, most of us had never even heard of bisphenol A. However, it's been around for a very long time. And we've only recently discovered how dangerous it is.
Bisphenol A was first synthesized in 1891 by a Russian chemist. And it was at a time when there was just a lot of new synthetic chemicals being created. So it didn't have necessarily a commercial purpose at that point. And it really wasn't until the 1930s that commercial use for the compound was investigated.
By the 1940s, bisphenol A was being developed as a possible drug for hormone treatments after it was discovered that it behaved like estrogen in lab animals. The turning point came later when it was also discovered that BPA could be used in plastics as a way of making clear, shatterproof containers and in the epoxy resins which line food cans. Now its history as a synthetic estrogen has come back to haunt us.
It has been tested in so many systems now. And during that same critical period where sexual differentiation takes place, where the brain is developing, where the pancreas is developing, and it interferes with every one of those systems. I mean, this is like a model chemical of how you could really go wrong.
The chemical lobby is one of the most powerful in the world. Since 1976, the U.S. government has banned just 5 chemicals.
Industry is using its power, its influence, its wealth to keep the regulatory system at bay, to keep government regulators and agencies away.
The chemical industry has realized that by creating this infrastructure of alternative science, they can paralyze regulators willing to buy into this and totally paralyze the agencies.
They realize that, quote, educating the public is critical. And, you know, misinformation is just as effective, done correctly, as information. And it works.
I don't think there's any question that companies are looking at this through purely a question of profit. And if they could get 1, 5, 10, 20 more years of selling the product without controls, they've been very successful.
It's a shocking statistic. Of the 80,000 chemicals in use, 85% of them have never undergone testing for their impact on the human body.
We have coated the Northern Hemisphere with chemicals that we know can be transferred from the mother to the offspring and affect how offspring develop. And if we don't reverse the production and the release of these kinds of chemicals, we're going to see widespread dysfunction among the human population.
The debate over the safety of man-made chemicals will never end, but we will never again live in a world without them. It will be decades before we understand what we've done, but it is already clear that we are permanently altering the sexual development of male children.
Look how long it's taken the idea of global warming to catch on in society, and we still have large numbers that deny it's happening. That's not scary. That's going to happen 3 generations down the road. But when you're talking about your own kids or your grandchildren, that is something else.
Synthetic chemicals are not only damaging the health of boys, they may be bringing about the end of our species as we know it.
I think this deluge of new chemicals that has arrived within the past century, chemicals that are novel to human body chemistry, I think they are moving us into a period of the most rapid evolution that this species has ever experienced. It's changing what types of genes make it through to the next generation, and who has the wrong genes are going to be less able to have progeny. That's the definition of evolution, and I think that's what's happening today.